Welcome to the Real People, Real Business show, where we're talking with business owners who are in the trenches, everyday people who are working hard and have relevant and inspiring stories that you can relate to. Everyone we speak to is actively building and growing their business and is here to share their experiences, lessons, wisdom, and guidance so you can be inspired to take action towards your own goals. Today, I am so excited to welcome back Marti Statler. Marti, hi. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm excited to talk to you again. Marti is a book coach, mentor, publicist. She lives in the book coaching and publishing world. And she is here for the second time on the show to tell us. And I asked her to come back because since our last interview, she has taken off. And I think it would be really, really interesting for you to share this journey with our listeners, because I think there's some really important things that we can take away from the experiences that you've had and what you have learned over the last year. So let's go back to where we were last time we talked. You had just launched Rebel.
Yeah, listen, I can't even remember. I think it was less than a year. I can't remember. Were we already working together one-on-one when we started?
No.
Okay. So that was like more than 7 months ago. Listen, I feel like a decade has passed since I've talked to you. I feel like what I'm doing and how I'm doing it is so different. I don't remember where we were last time.
It was November 2019 that we last talked.
Wow. So that was a long time ago.
So you had just started up Rebel.
Yes. Just a
couple.
So
give us like a 5-second backstory on kind of your journey up until Rebel. You had been working for another company.
Mm-hmm. So I started, so at this point, I've been publishing for 12 years. So that would have been almost, at that point that we talked the first time, it would have been almost 11 years that I've been publishing, not for myself. So when I started Rebel in May of 2019, Rebel was born out of actually our group sessions. I just didn't believe that I was good enough to do this on my own. I didn't think I was good enough to start a business and run a business on my own. And it was in our group session. I remember, I will never forget this. So pivotal. You're like, you can totally do this. Why aren't you doing this? I'll help you. And I believed you. And I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. So you did. You one big step in your journey, and you were already there when we last talked, was that you finally decided that it was time for you to stop making other people money and start making yourself the money, because you were basically running the show anyway, right? So you'd started up Rebel. Rebel was, and give us like a 5-minute orientation to what Rebel is and does.
Okay. So Rebel Queen Books is where you're going to find me on social media. So Rebel Queen helps women write, publish, and market their books. My business model is completely different from other business models are out there. I got my start in traditional based publishing. So we were very selective in the book that we brought. We paid royalties. We had bookstore shelf placement. We sometimes paid advances. We owned intellectual property to the books. And we distributed on all of our own platforms. So where I have come from there to now is I set all of my authors up as their own publishers. And I do that for very specific reasons. One, I don't want to own any intellectual property to your books. It's all yours. You keep that. Two, I have no interest in doing any sort of a royalty split with you. Three, I don't care who you publish with. The author is always the biggest marketer of their books. So I don't care if you publish with one of the big 5 publishers or you DIY it yourself. Your book sells because of you, because of who you are and what you're doing. So when you are doing said marketing plans and book launches, you need to figure out, you need to be able to know, how is this piece of marketing impacting my book sales? So you need access to all of the data so that you can pivot if something is not working. So that's another benefit to just being set up as your own publisher and having your own distribution platforms, because then you can go in and check your sales 20 times a day if you need to check your sales 20 times a day.
Right. So take us on a trip from November 2019 until today.
Okay.
I mean, particularly the last sort of 7 or 8 months, because things have changed significantly. Your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
the way you're doing your business, your goals, everything. So take us on a little journey.
Okay, so I might jump around a bit. You might have to like rein me back in. So let's talk about that mindset piece. Still, when we talked, when we started, like when we started working together like 6, 7, 8 months ago, that mindset piece was definitely still there. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Can I support myself? Can I support my household? I'm scared to ask for money. That was huge for me. Even though I know in my industry, like you can get something done for $1,000, or you can get something done for $100,000, and you can get something done anywhere in between those two numbers, right? So I feel like I had just this incredible like worth issue and value issue that I had to overcome. So, and listen, not that I've completely overcome it, because I've just revisited my numbers. I'm a student of what I do. So I'm constantly learning and constantly adjusting and constantly looking like, how can I be better for the people that I work with? So I do a lot of things that I don't even factor into my pricing. So in looking at my pricing, like, oh, like that gut check. I'm like, oh, in fact, I think I messaged you the other day. I'm like, okay, sweet Jesus, need to have a conversation about this. Because I'm not sure how I feel about this. So, I think I still struggle with like the whole money piece and asking for, but I also know what I bring to the table. So it's kind of like this internal like mindset thing that I feel like I'm constantly like talking myself through. As far as, me showing up on social media and talking to people is like a huge difference. I was scared before, even though I have done this and had been doing this for, 11, 12 years at this point, for me to show up on social media and say, hey, I can help you with that. Hey, I know what I'm doing. Like, hey, let's get on the phone and I'll talk you through, X, Y, Z. Because people, listen, I don't know very many people who do not say, I do not have a book in me. I've met a couple, but there's not very many. Most of the people that I come across and most of the people that are in the groups that I hang out in absolutely have a book inside of them. So when they're wrestling around with, hey, should I write? Why should I write? Well, there's already 40 other books on this subject. Or, hey, am I going to make money off of, writing this book? Like, there's just so much. And I'm like, hey, I can help you with that. Like, let me just kind of like pop in. So the fact that I'm showing up, I'm owning what I know, I'm communicating what I know, has really opened up the door for people to like book calls with me. Listen, I still get excited when I have an email that says you have an appointment scheduled. And I'm like, I don't even know who the hell this is. This is so exciting. Like they came to my website and they booked an appointment. I don't know these people. So I still find that like super exciting. And I still get really excited when that happens.
So let me touch on that for a second. One of the things that we're just talking about in the group right now is how showing up and selling is actually a service, right? It's actually helping people who aren't really sure where to go know that there is something out there that's going to help them, right?
Right. So yeah, and listen, I had to like come to terms with that, I believe, because there's definitely a mindset shift if you think that you are selling, like I am in sales, I'm selling. Yes, I am. And yes, you are. And yes, everybody is in sales. We sell ourselves every day, right? And especially as a business owner, like here's what I provide to people. I know what the hell I'm doing. Like I can shorten your learning curve. Like probably by months. I don't know. There is so much information out there on how to write a book, how to publish a book. And there's so much information that it's like, okay, I don't know what comes first. Should I do it this way? Should I do it this way? What's the difference in these different publishing models? Like, I know this. Get on the phone with me. I love talking people through this and, helping them, even if they don't publish with me. I love being able to help people just, go into something like eyes wide open. These are the things that you should be looking for. Hey, you're going to sign a contract. Great. Here's the things you should be looking for in a contract that you sign with someone. And I love being able to provide that for someone to help them not get sideswiped with something later on that maybe they weren't aware of,
Okay, so let's go back to sort of the journey you've taken. So there was a piece around mindset that shifted for you, right? And tell me more. So you're running a very different business than you were a year ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about that. So my work day was 7 days a week, morning, noon, and night. I worked all the time. I still feel like I work a lot, but I really enjoy what I do. However, I was doing all of the things. Like, I was handling everything from talking to clients, writing my own contracts, which I've had these contracts for like ever, but making sure my contracts were taken care of, bookkeeping, accounts payable, accounts receivable. I'm proofing books. I was doing everything. And it is so exhausting because a lot of the things that I was doing is not in my wheelhouse. It's not what makes me excited. It actually like sucks the life right out of me. But it's one of those necessary things that has to be done. I felt like I didn't have the money to pay someone else to do this because I'm so new and I need to be profitable. So I was just trying to like have my hands in all of the pots and do all of the things. So what has changed for me in the last 6 or 7 months is recognizing, hey, what pieces of my business do I thrive in? Like, what makes me super excited and what do I do really well in? And then recognizing those pieces that I don't do really well in and finding people to like fit that piece of puzzle for me. So bringing people on board, which of course makes me look at my pricing and adjust my pricing. So like at the beginning, I'm like, I can't afford that. I can't afford to do that. But now that I've done it, now that I've gotten some people in places, I'm like, how could I not afford this? Like, I am not quite sure where I would be now had I done some of these things 6 months ago. Like, if I'd have just taken a step back and recognized, Marti, this is really who you are. This is where you're thriving. And this is what brings you life. And like, that these things over here absolutely make you go to bed at night with a freaking headache, and then finding someone who can do those things and it brings them life. I mean, should have done this. Like,
so what is that thing? What is that thing that is so good for you to focus on, that brings you life, that is so in alignment with who you are?
Okay. So I'm a visionary. Like, I don't lack in ideas. I love talking to people. My discovery calls are like, I don't know, 20 minutes. I'm on the phone with people for an hour. And I'm like, hey, just so you know, I don't have anybody after you. We're going to be on here for an hour. If you're okay, I'm okay. Just because I love talking people through the process. Like, hey, let me just give you, I tell people like, hey, I'm going to verbally vomit on you. I can't help myself. So you can stop me and I will explain better. Feel free to ask questions. So like, it's just this great exchange. And by the time we're done, I know that you're going to have questions. So I love talking to people. I do a really great job of looking at the material that you are bringing to the table, whether they have written the book or they have this idea and just like some jumbled mess of stuff to throw together. I do a really good job of looking at that and like strategizing, like, okay, this is what this looks like. Let's lay out a table of contents. Let's talk about like, who are we trying to reach? What's the call to actions in the book? What resources can we include in this book? And then passing it off and doing that all over again. That's what I like to do.
Okay. So what we recognized pretty early on is that you are an exceptional salesperson. You're an exceptional salesperson because that is the work that you like to do. You like to talk, you like to have the vision, and people come out of a call with you being clear
Yeah.
on what their next move is, on being clear that they have something in them that can truly become this thing that they're dreaming of doing. So that's a really important piece. And so what we've done is we've tried to move you entirely out of the doing part of your business so
Mhm.
that you can be freed up to keep doing what's so in alignment for you. Does it
Yes.
feel different?
It feels wholly different. Listen, it feels like I'm not working. And that feels really weird. I'm like, oh gosh, I am making more money. I feel like I'm working less. And even when I am working, it doesn't feel like work.
So let's talk about the money. What kind of impact has this had on the financial side of your business?
Well, okay, listen. So I I have never, I mean, can I just get real? I'm going to get real. Okay. I've always worked, right? I've worked since I've been 14 years old. I've always worked multiple jobs. Um, but I have never had to take care of the house on my own. I've never had to be like wholly responsible for the finances. So, we're COVID. And at the beginning of the year, when everything started shutting down, my husband, who was the primary breadwinner, was no longer working. And we're like, oh shit, now what? Like, we've just always had his income. He worked for the same company for like 20 years and now he's not working. So the fact that I did it, I just, I did it. I did it. I did it. I held everything down. Like I held everything down. I held a business down. I held the house down. I just did it. And it was because like when you have to pivot, you have to pivot. And I pivoted. I'm like, I'm still blown away by this actually. So financially, like it has, not only has it had taken care of like my financial house, but what that has done for me and my abilities, like now I no longer feel, gosh, this sounds terrible, doesn't it? I don't feel relying on anybody. I don't need anybody, which is what I've always told my girls too. So.
So without talking about the actual numbers, which, I tend to like people to keep those kind of confidential because that's their business. But the difference in the first year of your business financially
Yes.
versus the last 6 to 8 months when you finally got aligned with doing the right work.
Mm-hmm. Listen,
What's the ratio?
I'm really terrible with numbers and ratios. I need a calculator. But honestly, if I had to guess, I probably had like an 80% increase. I don't know. Like
So your yeah, so your
probably more
the
than
last 6 months of your business, you have made 5 times. Nope,
yes.
six, five, 5 or 6 times what you made in the
More,
first 6 months of the year.
which is way higher than 80%.
That's right. That's right. So the whole point being that when you got into alignment with the work that you were doing, when you got your mindset right, when you put your systems in place, which we haven't talked about yet,
Mhm.
and got really clear on this business, everything started impacting the financial side of things. This is like such a great story because it's the point I'm trying to make with people all the time, that stop focusing on the money, start focusing on what you're building first, and the money
Yeah,
comes. Do you believe that?
I do 100% believe that. Yes.
Okay.
I don't
So,
focus on the money.
so tell me more like on the operational side,
Mhm.
what's changed?
Everything's changed. I've got people in places doing what they love to do. This was actually a really big stretch for me because I didn't have to do this before. Actually, I should have had to do this before, but I did not do this before. So when I was doing everything, I just had my way of doing it, right? Um, so what it forced me to do, so I feel like um, when I was doing all of it on my own, I wasn't forced and I didn't have a need to systemize, even though there was a system in what I was doing, I wasn't forced to have a system in place outside of me. I didn't have to write anything down. I didn't really have to look at software like notebooks and an Excel spreadsheet was fine. um, but in knowing that now I had to like, okay, listen, I feel like I'm creating a real business. Like it's not just me, like this is real. So in making that transition from me doing all of the things to having people in place to help me and to work with me, like I had to create the standard, which took me like a minute. Like I had to pull back and look at it and write down the standard. This is how we do things. This is my expectations. We do this, and then we do this, and then we do this. And then I'm teaching somebody else the system of how to do that. So like, yeah, I'm creating the wheel so other people can spin the wheel, but it feels good once that's done because now there's no question, you know?
Totally. And you are stepping into a team-based model, right?
Mhm.
And how does that feel? What are some of the things you had to really consider when you decided that you're going to move all of this work to other people?
Okay, so that was interesting too, because I felt like I had to be really cognizant of people's skill sets. Okay, I'll back up. I feel like skill set in some areas, skill set wasn't really like I can teach skill. Um, so skill set isn't the right word, but I had to be really cognizant of people's drive and desirability. And all right, so I'm a big picture kind of gal. So the things that I'm really terrible at, I'm not going to hire and bring on someone who is also like a big picture kind of person. Like I need someone who's like nitty gritty in the details. Um, so I had to be really cognizant of that to make sure that we were going to be good matches and that we would be able to work really well together. Because I don't want someone like me. I want someone who can like challenge me and someone who can fill in my gaps, which is interesting.
Right. And so where did you look for them? Like this is one of the big questions that a lot of my clients have, and when it comes to scaling, they always struggle with how do I find the right people?
Hmm. So I honestly, I threw calls out on Facebook, on social media. Hey, I'm looking for, if you know somebody, and I gave like really big overarching generic. I'm looking for writers, marketers, and proofers. If you know anybody, let me know. So then I would start getting these emails with resumes. And I could tell very quickly if someone was going to jive with me just based on that email. People who I want someone with personality. So people who gave me like the real professional, hello, my name is attached is my resume. And then you get this resume that's like, oh, boring. Thank you. Next. People who were like, oh my gosh, I have been looking for you. This is what I do. This is what I love. I've also found like this knack that I have been working with women who want to do like the role that I need filled. They want to do that, but they don't know how to do that. They need someone to give them a start. So I have conversations with them. And if I find them to be eager to learn and coachable, like I love working with them because I absolutely look at Rebel as well as being like the springboard of business. So for people to get started with me so they can create their own businesses and take on other clients, you know, I'm all about so cliche, but empowering women. So
Right. So for you, it was more about who these people are, and that the skill set is teachable as long as there's a foundation.
correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. What was the big mindset hurdle to get over when you thought about taking on a team?
Well, it's really scary. And it's still kind of scary, actually, with every new person I bring on. You know, I'm constantly, did I make the right choice? Are they going to be a good fit? But what I'm finding is that these people will present themselves as being good fits or not good fits. pretty quickly, like I can tell pretty quickly if someone they're new, they don't really know what the heck they're doing. I'm training them and they're being assertive and asking questions. They're not afraid to ask questions like, oh, I like those. People who take ownership in what they do. Like I love people who come on and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to try to figure this out on my own before I come ask questions. Love working with those people. I don't so much love working with people who need their hand held all the time and have like 40 questions all the time before they do something. So they present themselves pretty quickly just based on interaction.
Okay. So part of your success in building a team is being really aware of the type of person that you're looking for and what their attributes are, but also there's just a personality fit. How did you know who you needed to bring on?
Oh, okay. So this is good. So I looked at my client journey. I looked at everything that I do with a client from the time my first connection is with them until they get their offboarding packet, right? So I looked at that and I tried to break it up into, I don't want to say manageable, like what makes sense. Like one person can handle from here to here, someone can come on from here to here. And then based on where that piece was in the client journey, helped me to formulate what type of person that I need in that job. And so that really helped, like just being able to break up the client journey. But the other thing too, like there's always like business stuff that needs to be done that isn't so it doesn't present itself so quickly and easily. But things like bookkeeping, sweet Jesus, my bookkeeper was probably my best investment that I've ever made in my entire life. Love her. Just because I hate bookkeeping and I'm terrible at it. I can do it. I forced myself to be administrative, but I don't like doing it. So she was really great. And I just recently hired someone else on to handle like some social media and blog writing stuff. Not that I'm not capable of doing it, but I'm not doing it. And there's better things that I could be spending my time on right now.
So to me, this is like a really important piece. A lot of business owners get into their business and they think, oh my gosh, I have to do all the things. And we're running a challenge right now in my free group where this is exactly what we're breaking down. You have to do all the things, you know, if you're not in all the channels and you're not getting, you know, hundreds and hundreds of new followers or new subscribers, then you're failing. And I think one of the most important things we did with you is we cut everything out and we focused
Mm-hmm.
on one tactic. One tactic, because I saw that you were just running headlong towards it and it was so natural for you. And you have 4 or 5 sales calls a week. It's ridiculous. So tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about paring down the marketing.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about that. And I'm going to back up a little bit if this is cool, because at one time of day, I felt like I needed to have all of the things in place and perfect before I got started. Right. So I had to have business cards and I had to have a website and I had to have a social media presence. Like I had to have all these things. When I started Rebel, I didn't have anything. I had my personal email address. I didn't have a website. I didn't have jack. And I started making money doing it. So there's that. And I'm terrible with social media. I love social media. I love a good presence, but I'm terrible with keeping up with social media because I've got other things that I'm doing. So even though I have like Facebook and Instagram being like my 2 primary that I would like to focus on, where I really focus my time and efforts is in Facebook groups online and paid networking groups. So I belong to 2 networking groups that are fabulous. You know, there is just a never ending supply of women entrepreneurs who are there to network and are there to grow their business and want to write books.
So you've been working these networking groups, which for you, that's your thing.
Yeah.
And you've managed to quintuple your business with that one tactic.
Yes.
That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And
Yeah.
now you've got the resources to be able to start to do other things because other people can do them for you.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Right. So what's your advice for someone who is where you were a year ago
Mm,
in terms of building, like growing their business?
yeah, I think I had this unnecessary pressure on what I should be doing because I looked at what everybody else is doing, what everybody else is saying I should be doing. When in reality, if I just went really deep in one thing, I'm still not like, you can go to my social media channels right now. I'm still not updating them at all. I don't even know when the last time I updated, which is fine, because I'm still bringing in clients. I'm still making money. And oh, this is so good. I got word of mouth referrals like all the time. Like, honestly, I don't even think I need to market. I'm marketing because I want to grow, but I don't even think I need to, honestly. Like, if I was just content with where I was and not doing anything else, like, my word of mouth is really good. Because you talk to people and then they talk to people and they're like, oh, you need to call Marti. But I'm being real purposeful in these groups because I want to grow. Like, I have big dreams of where I'm
Yeah.
going. So,
But that is marketing, right? And so what we think about traditional marketing, we think, advertising or putting content out there, anything like that. But visibility is still marketing. Networking is still marketing. Anytime you're becoming known,
mhm,
it's marketing.
yeah,
And so for some people, doing what you do so well is just like nails on a chalkboard. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to. We had a question in the group the other day. What if I don't like social media? Am I doomed? Nope. There's
mm-mm,
so many options, but I think for you the lesson is the focus, right?
yeah,
The
I agree.
lesson is that you can build a very successful business entirely on one tactic.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
it worked
yeah. And how did you know that that was the tactic that you should be using?
because I could see the fruits of my labor, my labor, which is not really labor. I was just talking to people.
Yeah. You can see the fruits of your labor, but you also feel like you're not working, right?
I know.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
So you've got big plans for this year.
I do.
Yeah.
So, okay. What I am super excited about is, like I said, I don't lack in ideas, right? What I lacked in was the ability to follow through with all of the ideas. And I couldn't follow through with all of the ideas because I was doing all of the things and I was tired. Gosh, I worked all the freaking time. I was tired. So, my word for this year is create. I got real purposeful in writing down. I'm a notebook gal, right? Because I love pen to paper. So I got real purposeful in writing down on a piece of notebook paper, like all of my ideas for content, like creating a library of resources to help authors. Um, Books. I have got probably 6 or 7 books that I would like to get out this year. I want to start a podcast this year. So, do I think all of those are doable? Yeah, I absolutely think they're doable. But I get real purposeful on chunking them out in the order that makes the most sense. And when I did that, I recognized that most of these can be chunked in multiples because I'm essentially killing 3 birds with one stone. Um, but because I don't have like all of this work on my shoulders and on my mind, it frees me up to be able to create. Like, it frees me up to be able to sit down and think through and process and put pen to paper or, fingers to keyboard. So it's really nice, and like this like creative time that has opened up for me to be able to do these things.
Okay. And how is that going to impact the growth of your business?
How is that going to impact? So I feel like it's going to establish me if I'm starting to show up in ways that I have a resource library and books. It's going to establish me as an authority. I mean, because when people have a book, they're like, oh gosh, they have a book, right? I mean, it's true. It establishes like credibility and authority. I want to be the go-to person. I want someone to say, oh, you need to go to the Rebel Queen site. She's got something on that for you. So I want to be the go-to person that helps you sort through and get clarity in each step of this publishing process that you're doing. So,
Right. In order to reach the goals that you have financially, which are significant. I mean, you want to grow almost 10 times what you've gotten to. But the interesting thing is you've made leaps and bounds in the last 6 months, but now you've almost built a machine, right? You've built a little machine that now just needs to get fed. So you've built a scalable, repeatable process with the right people in place, and you've stepped away from delivering all of the work. So, what's going to be super important and integral for you in order to be able to reach the numbers you have your goal set on? What needs to happen in your business? What needs to be in place in your business now
Mm-hmm.
and in the
Mm-hmm.
next 6 to 12 months in order to reach the financial goals you've set for yourself this year?
Oh, I think I've got a really good handle on that. And it's just like continuing to improve my systems and automate as much as I can, which I'm actively working on that. I used to think that I had to figure it out and do it all myself, and I no longer think that at all. Like, I don't need to know how to make my Dubsado like pretty and branded and fabulous, because there's people out there who do know how to do that. Like, it is totally in their wheelhouse. So, I've brought people in to help me like get all of the workflows set up. Like, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm automating currently.
Okay, so the automation and taking yourself out of the business processes are going to enable you to scale.
Mhm.
Where are some of the opportunities to scale? Like, where are the hot spots in your industry right now?
I'm doing it. I'm in the entrepreneur groups. I'm in like the boss mom groups, I'm in the networking groups. My niche, I want to work with women business owners, and I feel like I am already in there, but because things are getting set up to be automated, and I have trusted people that I can pass things off to, and I know the work is getting done, it just frees up more of my time to show up in a greater capacity.
Why do you think there's so much excitement in the female entrepreneurship groups around writing books? Like, what do you think that gives these these ideal clients that you have? Why did they get so excited about writing books?
I think a lot of them, it is they've always wanted to write a book. Every author that I've talked to, they're like, man, I've been wanting to do this for so long. And then when I come in and I'm talking to them, and I'm talking to them about each step of the process, I really feel like they just feel really comfortable and confident with me, that I'm able to take that off their plate, and I know what I'm doing and I'm running it through. And at the same time, once the book's done, like, I'm putting all of the control back into their lap, right? And I think that that's what they really want. They want to get this done. They have this dream, they have this desire, they want to get done. I know what I'm doing. I can handle it for them. And then I'm handing it back to them. And then I'm just there as a resource afterwards if they need anything else. I have tons of clients that come back and ask questions.
So when they have ultimately published,
Mm-hmm.
what does that do for them in their business?
Well, so I talked a little bit earlier about, establishing authority and credibility in their field. But these books to them are like really great business cards. So it opens up doors for like speaking opportunities, or doors to be able to go into organizations that previously would have been shut.
And do you think that a book is an opportunity to make more money? Like, is it, do
Oh,
you
yeah.
do you sell a book and get rich?
No. Mm-mm. I mean, you can. That's not normally the case. So when I talk to my authors about the books that they're doing, we're talking about, hey, when you're looking at the investment that it's taking for you to bring this book into the world, which if you're dreaming it, you should totally do it. But look at the ROI as in all of these other opportunities it's going to bring to you. So, hey, do I need to sell 100 books to get my investment back? Or do I use this book as part of like my marketing tool? And listen, if books are done well and done right, there are so many other products that can come out of that book, like online courses, challenges. Like, there's just so much that can be done with one book. And one of the things that I like doing, when I work with authors and I'm like, okay, hey, so who's the target audience? What's the call to actions on here? And then, because I do like nonfiction nonfiction books. Like I do like leadership books. I hate to say self-help books, but self-help books, right? I love helping women pack up their expertise into the book. So what do we create in addition to this book? And I have people, marketing people who are going through books say, hey, have you considered this? And obviously it has to resonate. But the goal for me when I'm helping to do a book is to push the reader back to the website of the author. Because here's why. Most of the distribution is going to happen through Amazon. Well, you're not going to get your client data from Amazon. So how do we package everything up in this book to continually point them back to your website? Because the end reader, we want back to your website, because that client data is the gold that's going to create more dollars for you down the line.
Can you look at yourself a year and a half ago? How are you different as a business owner?
I don't feel frazzled like I did. Like I felt like emotionally I was up and down, up and down. Like, gosh, I feel much more calmer. I feel more at peace with what I mean, listen, that's not to say that I still don't have like freak out times. I totally have those freak out times. But I think in general, if I had to look at myself from a year and a half ago, like I've got a handle on what I'm doing. And even if I don't know what I'm doing, like I don't know all of the steps, when everything that I'm doing, I don't know the steps, but I know the next step that I need to take. And I've created I've created the space of people around me that if I don't know the next step, you know the next step, or my friend Laura knows the next step, or somebody else. Like I've just created this network of women that if I don't know what I'm doing, they can tell me what I should be doing next, and we just need to know what that next right step is.
So for the people who are out there kind of getting started, how do you find that? I agree with you, like having that community, having that resource, having your sort of peer support is absolutely integral. And it's worth every penny that you might spend, even if you have it informally and you don't spend any money on it. It's necessary for you to put that in place. So how do you recommend people make sure that they have that community around them? Because it's really isolating when no one in your life understands the experience and you don't have anyone to turn to, right?
Yeah. Okay. Listen. So I just want to speak to that real quick because I think this is super important. Like maybe I didn't learn as quickly as I should have. I should have learned quicker. But recognizing who those people are in your life that you tell them, hey, I want to do, I'm thinking about, like, this is the next step. And they give you 40 different reasons why that's not going to work or why you are not going to be successful doing it. So now I am very cautious about who I share dreams and desires to, because I know the people who are going to support my vision and tell me that I got this and I can do this. I do not share my stuff with people. And listen, they could be people very close to me, like people in my own house, right? I don't share everything with them because they're just not there with me. So my people I found has been online in my networking groups, like just joining the conversation on Facebook in these groups of people who have like minds. And I always, always, always do worse if I find that I'm isolating. Like if I find that I haven't been reaching out to friends or reaching out into these communities, it's kind of like a really quick spiral downwards.
Yeah, that's important, right? I see it with you too, right? Like that is I think not it's not unusual because we just spend every minute in our heads thinking about our businesses and what we're building and it's also real to us and it's very very easy to spiral. So what have you built a habit or some little tactic you can take on when you feel yourself starting to spiral like that?
I reach out. I reach out to some friends.
Mhm.
I read some. I start joining in on Facebook group conversations again. Um, yeah, I have to purposefully put myself out there.
Yeah. And make the connections.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a question I ask everybody, and I know I've asked you before, and I know you and I have had many conversations about this, but I'd be really curious to hear your answer. now after the experience you've had in the last, year and a half. So what is different what's the difference between what we sort of see in the online business world and out in social media and what's real about doing business?
Okay. So people are online. They look perfect. They're perfect. Their pictures are perfect. Their words are perfect. Their families are great. Their business is doing great. And like, listen, it is so not like that. I have talked to people. Listen, I try to keep it real anyway, right? And I remember talking to someone who is a podcast girl, right? She likes help people get on podcasts. So I talked to her and she's like, oh my gosh, I was saying something to her like, hey, things were not going so great in this moment. And I was being honest with her. And it was like a breath of fresh air for her. She's like, I am really glad that you said that. You look like you have it all put together. And I'm like, no. I'm like, because I never want to portray that. Like, I want to portray real and authentic because people connect with, people connect with like the problems. Like, hey, I'm doing the thing, but despite me doing the thing, I'm also having some really bad days. Like I didn't shower today. My hair's thrown back. I still have on my PJs and I'm working and I'm questioning if I should increase my prices because I've got a knot on my stomach, or I'm looking at my numbers and trying to determine if I should actually hire this person to do this thing because can I really afford to do that right now?
And that's so normalizing for people to know that they're not the only ones. So how do we break that down? I mean, I know it's a personal bias of mine to try and make sure that we're showcasing people in the, in the wild that are struggling with the same things that everyone else is struggling with and can tell stories about getting through just this next thing. I don't need to talk to people who are always, have made it, right? Or who have achieved the success. And I get so excited about what you're doing because though you're not in the 8-figure club, you're certainly going in the right direction. And so more important to my community, they may not know this even, but more important to them is them seeing how you have done it because they're right behind you, right? They're right there.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that those conversations are happening?
Okay. Yeah. Actually, that's really because while I say that, I certainly don't expect you or me or the next person to really show, oh, gosh, okay, to show up at their ugliest. Like in my ugly moments, I don't really want to show up in those ugly moments. I mean, because there's a lot of people who don't know you who are going to come. And listen, your social media, I mean, that's like front and center. That's how they are judging you. You judge a book by its cover, right? True story. So I feel like those conversations are much better had when you can go deep in your relationships, when you can have open, honest conversations where they're like your business besties and you can get real with them and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. So I certainly I think it's just something that we need to be cognizant of. I don't think we need to like be showing up on social media, telling about all the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I do think that we need to really connect with people who know like the struggles that we're dealing with and are open and welcoming to connect and be like, girl, yeah, I got you. I am so stressed too. I get it.
Yeah, and I think part of that is setting the tone for the conversation right up front, right? Like I tend to be quite real with people and show that side of me right away so that people know they're comfortable. Like I had one client that hired me because she was in a position, financially that I had been in before as well. And it was such a relief for her to know that someone else could understand. Like that normalization, we always sit there in this bubble thinking that we're the only ones. And that results in shame and guilt, and shame and guilt cause us to stop taking action.
Yeah, it
So
does.
if we can normalize, it's a really important part of the process.
Yeah, it really is.
I know
Yeah.
you've got a vision, whether
Mhm.
it's this year, next year, sometime soon, of creating that kind of community yourself.
I do.
Can
I
you
do.
talk a little bit more about that?
Well, actually, so I'm getting ready to I shouldn't say launch, I'm getting ready to start a 3-book series that I want to reach women who, maybe they're at the very beginning of business. Maybe they just dream about business. Maybe they're stuck in a job that they absolutely hate. But the one thing all of these women have in common is they're tenacious and they know there's something more and they want that. So we were talking about this the other day, like the 3 areas that I feel that each of these books are going to serve to help women, like, okay, do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And I want this series of books to be anywhere between wisdom from 10 to 12 other women entrepreneurs who have been there, who can say, yes, I get you, I understand you. Here's been my experience, and this is what I would tell you. So it's a resource for these women to not only connect with the authors that are contributing to this book, but to get real practical tools on what other successful women have done to get to where they are.
Awesome. And I think what I love about that is that the people you're considering including are not celebrities, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not celebrities. They are, successful in their own right. But there's like this layer of entrepreneurs who are successful, but maybe haven't done something so crazy or noteworthy. They've just done well, right?
Yeah.
And they've done quite well. They've got incredible advice. Because oftentimes when you reach that kind of celebrity status, it's often a bit of a fluke,
Mm-hmm.
something happened that was advantageous and got you the kind of visibility that that you really wanted. But most of the time you have these awesome, successful little businesses that never get any airplay because they weren't in the right place at the right time, but they're still making good money and they've still figured it out. And they've got really, really great things to offer.
Yeah. And there's so many of them out there.
Yeah. And you get to meet them because you're publishing their books.
I'm so excited.
All right. So let me let's close this off, and I want to hear from you. What's the one thing that you wish you'd known or done earlier to get to where you are right now?
So the one thing that I wish I'd have known or done earlier was I didn't have to do all the things. Things broke open when I realized I didn't have to do all the things.
Totally. Yeah. That's a huge one for you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And this year you're going to keep doing less and less of the things and more and more of the focused things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay. Where can our listeners find you, Marti?
I am on Instagram and Facebook periodically at Rebel Queen Books is my handle. And my website is rebelqueen.co. And listen, I just love having conversations. So if someone's thinking about a book, wrote a book, started writing a book, put it down 10 years ago, just want to talk about the process or launching a book, listen, I love talking. So you can schedule a call with me directly from my website. And yeah, let's have a conversation. I'll help you. Awesome.
So we'll put all the links in the show notes, and you can reach out to Marti. She loves to talk, and she's going to have all this free time because she's hiring a team and putting a team in place. How many people do you have now? What, 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that?
11. I don't know.
11?
Yeah, maybe there's like 11. I don't know. I just made a list of everybody because, I don't have like this running, like I know what needs done and I can get you to do this and you're doing this and you're doing this. And yeah, maybe it's 11. I don't know.
Yeah. Letting go is such an important concept when you're scaling up. Yeah. All right. Marti, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm sure I'll be talking to you again in a few more minutes, but thanks for sharing your journey and for being with us once again today. And I would say if you want to know anything about the book publishing process, reach out to Marti. She certainly knows her stuff, and I think she can give you some really great advice because, as she said, everybody has a book in them. All right. That's a wrap for this episode. Such an amazing conversation. Make sure and go check out Marti at Rebel Queen and hop on a call with her if you want. And thank you for tuning in today to hear the story. The episodes you're listening to are all featuring members of my free private Facebook group called the Real Deal Business Coaching Group, soon to be renamed Real People, Real Business, where we have daily prompts to keep you focused on building your business, sharing your everyday challenges, bi-weekly chats, open coaching, challenges, lots of events happening this year, and so much member support from a really incredible community. If you'd like to join us or you want to be featured on this show, I would love for you to come and hang out with us in the group. Link is in the show notes, or search us up on Facebook to find us. And finally, I would love for you to join us for our next episode. We're going to be speaking to another amazing business owner who is sharing their story. Thank you again for being here. And if you've enjoyed today's content, I would love for you to give us a review on whatever platform you're on. This helps us share these stories with an even bigger audience. Until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep being real.